Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. It's been a while, Tom.
It's been more than a week. That's on me. I apologize. I contracted some sort of Martian death flu last week, which left me with little to no voice, which, if you are at all familiar with the podcasting milieu, not having a voice is detrimental to your performance on podcasts. So here we are.
Yeah, sign language only goes so far in this medium.
Yeah. So,
and right now I'm giving you one piece of sign language.
Yes, yes. The one finger that you're holding up, I assume, is for the 1 week that you were sick earlier this year.
That's
and
true.
Now I had my 1 week, so now we're done.
We're done.
It's like the chicken pox. Good to get it out of the way early,
Right.
and then
Get the chicken pox party. Everybody gets sick. You get it out of the way, and then you move right into spring ball. Everybody's good to go.
There you go.
Before we get into like Ohio State stuff, Tom, let's talk a little bit about Michigan State, and specifically Luke Fickell telling them, you know what, I'm good.
Yeah.
You know, they sit down, they talk for hours, and I view it as like you're going and you're looking and you're shopping for homes, and on the outside you're thinking, you know what, this might be the one. And then you go in and you see everything that's wrong with it after talking with the realtor, and you see like all, you know, contractors are like, you know, be careful with this one. You realize, you know, after you get out, like, no, there's just too much work in this place. We got a nice house in Cincinnati. I think we're good for now.
Yeah, he's shopping for homes, but his current house is not on the market. Like, there's no reason he has to leave. Mm-hmm. It's just, well, if I found the perfect place that's a real upgrade, then sure, I'll consider moving. And Michigan State, Michigan State's got some water in the basement right now, and you know, the roof might be a little leaky, and the furnace is kind of making some funny noises, and you know, maybe this is just not a great opportunity. I from day one, I did not think he was going to take it. I thought that this was a much better opportunity for Pat Narduzzi to take, because Pat Narduzzi has just kind of like, he's just kind of plateaued at Pitt. And he hasn't been bad, but he hasn't been good. They've just been like fine. And, you know, you move to a new school, you get a new contract, you know, sort of reset that, hot seat clock a little bit, where, you know, if Pat Narduzzi goes 4-8.
It's like hitting a checkpoint on a racing game.
Yeah, exactly.
You reset the clock.
Yeah, he's, you know, if Pat Narduzzi goes 4-8 next year at Pitt, his job might be in some trouble. If he goes 4-8 at Michigan State next year, well, you know, Mark D'Antonio kind of left a mess, and so you know, you got a few more years to kind of get stuff sorted out. So yeah, I never thought it made a ton of sense for Fickell, just from his perspective, because I think he's got much better opportunities potentially on the table in the next year or two.
Yeah, but you know, then you see reports of $25-30 million, and you're like, well, that's tough to turn down until you like look inside and see that it might not be worth it. And I think when this looked like it was happening, I thought that this wasn't going to be I'm not entirely sure that Luke Fickell would win there, but I still don't think it would have been good news for Michigan, because then like he would have focused his energy on beating Michigan. Ohio State has already focused their energy on beating Michigan. Michigan cannot fight a battle on two fronts, let alone they can't fight a battle on one front right now. So I thought it would have been bad news for Michigan if there's now a second school, you know, like Mark D'Antonio was, but he lost his energy.
Yeah,
Luke Fickell has that energy. I think D'Antonio said at his press conference he didn't like the year-round recruiting. And if you don't like recruiting year-round, you should have retired years ago, because that's what this is now. And Luke Fickell is good with that. So I think Michigan kind of dodges a bullet for now.
Yeah, Michigan dodges a bullet for now. The focus issue is one thing, and Mark D'Antonio there was never a question that Mark D'Antonio had the Michigan game circled on his calendar. The other aspect of that, which is kind of interesting, is Michigan State's recruiting has fallen off the last couple of years. One of the reasons is they have not gone into Ohio and gotten the kids that they've gotten out of Ohio. One of the reasons for that is, hey, Luke Fickell started to recruit a whole bunch of real good players out of Ohio. Luke Fickell has, I think, 3 4-star recruits in his 2020 recruiting class. Michigan State has 0. So if you are getting beat by a non-Power 5 school and you're a Power 5 coach and that's one of your typical recruiting hotbeds, like that's a problem. So if Luke Fickell did go to Michigan State, that perhaps, sort of kicks that Ohio recruiting pipeline back in for them. That's the stuff. Those are the guys where it was like, it wasn't the Ohio State guys. They weren't beating Ohio State for players, but it was like the level of guys right below the Ohio State guys where, yeah, they were pretty good. They just weren't quite Ohio State good. So, it was like the scratch and dent section of the store a little bit. And, okay, this is a slightly dinged quarterback, or here's a little bit of a dented running back, but, we can kind of develop that. We can buff that out in a year or two, and then you've got a pretty good player. And they've kind of gotten away from that at Michigan State, and that's one of the things that's really killed them. Yeah,
you figure in 3 years, some of those players would look no different than an Ohio State player who has been banged up a little bit, or, just that development portion of their career would have them playing at a level that they could have been Buckeyes. I think the other school that is more than any other school that is thankful is Kentucky.
Oh, yeah.
Because they get to keep being that number 2 school in Ohio, because if Luke Fickell, and right now Luke Fickell is Cincinnati, they're doing some good things in Ohio, but if he goes to Michigan State, he is focusing so much attention with that budget on Ohio, and that would have hurt Kentucky, who is, getting to the point where they are the number 3 perhaps program in the SEC East, heading that way this year possibly.
Probably.
If they can fight off Tennessee.
Yeah.
But losing, keeping that Ohio base is huge for them. I think they signed Mike Drennan here recently.
Yep.
And that's a guy who Ohio State was in on, decided to pass on, but is a guy that should be playing in the Big Ten, like so many other Ohio kids.
Yeah, and Kentucky has done a lot of what Michigan State used to do with the sort of scratch and dent section of the grocery store. Lynn Bowden, their quarterback, was this absolutely game-changing player for them. He was just an athlete kind of player out of, I think he's out of Warren, somewhere in Northeast Ohio. And Ohio State passed on him, and he turned into, the athletic ability was never the question there. So you get him on campus, you get him in your system. They had their quarterback Terry Wilson got hurt, their backup quarterback got hurt, Gunnar Hoke had transferred to Ohio State, and all of a sudden it's like, oh crap, we're out of quarterbacks, so we're going to throw this guy back there and basically almost run the single wing. And it worked out great because he's a kind of fantastic, generational athlete who just could make plays with his feet and just kind of make things happen. They have done that in so many different areas. They got who was the defensive tackle from Michigan? I keep thinking Justin Rogers, and I'm not sure if that was right, but they signed a defensive tackle from Michigan who was like, oh, is he going to go to Michigan or Ohio State or Georgia? And then he went to Kentucky, and it was like, well, everyone else had kind of backed off.
Everybody else was wanting him as a guard on the offensive line, and I think Kentucky said,
yeah, sure, defense. You want to do absolutely. Like, this is fantasy camp. What do you want to do? You tell it. You want to play quarterback? That's fine.
You want to be shortstop? Go do it.
Yeah. So they have done a very good job of kind of exploiting the inefficiencies in the market, let's say, and making the most of those. And they have gotten to the point where all of a sudden Kentucky's like a 7-8 win team a lot of years instead of a 4 or 5 win team. And that's making Mark Stoops a whole lot of money. And, he obviously thinks that's sustainable because he did not go anywhere. Yeah. He was talked about as a potential candidate, places as big as Florida State this last offseason. He didn't go anywhere. So he obviously thinks he's got something that's sustainable there. But yeah, Luke Fickell at Michigan State would put quite a cramp in that, I would think.
The whole Michigan State thing, because we don't know what's going to happen from this Curtis Blackwell lawsuit. Blackwell was the recruiting director for Michigan State for a few years and was fired and sort of blamed for the sexual assault situations with a few players and some of the recruiting not such good people. And, something that Mark D'Antonio, I think, kind of said that basically they went in that direction, and he put some of the blame on Blackwell, and so then Blackwell is suing them, and now you're getting into depositions, and all of this stuff comes out, and everything that goes on record becomes information for the NCAA. Mm-hmm. Blackwell was throwing around accusations of D'Antonio finding jobs for recruits' parents, so you don't exactly know what is going to be the result of all of this. I think what you have to expect is that something is going to come from it, which makes this an even bigger project, and one where, I would argue for Luke Fickell, I think we both assume the playoffs are going to go to 8 teams in 3 or 4 years here when this deal ends. Fickell in Cincinnati, if he were to stay there, would have a much, I don't want to say easier, a much more linear path to the playoffs at Cincinnati as as the group of 5 team that is allowed in than he ever would at Michigan State. And this is a Michigan State program that is one of 13. I didn't even know the number of programs that have made the playoffs. Michigan State is one of them. I don't see them back there anytime soon, and I see Cincinnati as a place more likely to get there than the Spartans.
Yeah, I mean, the path for Cincinnati to get to the playoff in an 8-team system is win your conference, because the AAC is generally considered the best Power 5 conference. So, unless there's a completely dominating Boise State team or something like that year, if you're 11-1 and you win the AAC, you've got a pretty good chance of getting there. I mean, Memphis was the group of 5 representative in the New Year's Six Bowls this year, which means that that's who they would have gone with in the playoff. With Michigan State, it's not just hey, you have to beat Ohio State and you have to beat Michigan and you have to beat Penn State, and those are just the teams in your division, let alone whoever you get in crossovers. There's also just the uncertainty. Because a lot of this Michigan State stuff with the Curtis Blackwell situation, it's still so fresh that how confident can you be that there's not another shoe waiting to drop there? Because, he leaked this stuff about the getting parents jobs and him, Blackwell, being on a recruiting trip he wasn't supposed to be on. And it's like, okay, is that all? Or is there something else that's out there? Now, if there's something else that's out there, both Blackwell and D'Antonio know it. I'm not sold on the fact that the information that Blackwell leaked was enough. First of all, Michigan State denied it. But second of all, the timing of D'Antonio stepping down.
So 2 hours after.
2 hours after that came out, the day before National Signing Day, it was just, the timing was just so strange. It was like, what else is out there that he knows that we don't know yet? And when you're looking at, to go back to the house hunting analogy, you've got a good house. If there's a chance, like even a 5% chance there's a massive sinkhole under some other house, you're not going to buy that house. You're not going to take your chances, because why risk putting yourself in a spot that could just get bombed?
You say like D'Antonio left that house like the family in the Amityville Horror did. They're like, we don't even care. Like, we just bought this thing, but we're out of here.
Yes, I just dug the $4.3 million out of the backyard. So that was a real distasteful part of this whole thing. Like the whole, the whole, can't pay the players, purity of amateurism, yada, yada, yada. For him to, he had a retention bonus that was good for $4.3 million if he stayed till January 15th after the season. And all year, I mean, last summer we were talking about the fact that this might be Mark D'Antonio's last year.
He looked miserable this season.
He looked unhappy. So. The results were no good. It just like nothing was working. The trend was terrible. Everything about it was like, this is not working anymore. And he hangs around, had he announced he was retiring in November, Michigan State has a chance to run a normal hiring cycle, bring in a new staff, potentially save this recruiting class. None of that happened. He waited until after he gets his retention bonus, and then the day before National Signing Day, when you've got players who are ready to sign with you, then you're like, actually, he was just on the road recruiting that week, and then actually, I'm going to leave.
Yeah, it's so bizarre, and then he gets cranky and denies that the timing of the report had anything to do with the timing of his decision to retire. And it reminded me a little bit of Jim Tressel being allowed to retire so he could get benefits, as opposed to being fired or whatever. Same thing here. Of course, the benefits being the $4.3 million earlier, and then he gets to stay on as some sort of advisor at $1 million a year, for next year as well. I'll be interested to see if that sticks, though, depending on what comes out from all of this.
Yeah, I mean, this very much feels like something where we have the first part of the book and the middle part of the book, and the Mark D'Antonio retires. Seems like it's the end of the story. It's like there might be an appendix or two back here that or an epilogue here where something else happens.
No, I think it'll be like when George Bush was on The Simpsons and wrote about, after serving one term, I got all the stuff I needed to get done in that first term, so I decided not to, run for a second term.
There was no need for a second.
Then where does Michigan State go from here? I kind of figure like it'll just be Mike Tressel, who is the interim coach right now. I think he was the defensive coordinator, nephew of Jim Tressel, son of Doc Tressel. He seems to be the only one that would take the job right now anyway. Although, Tom,
yeah,
there are reports
hashtag karma
that a certain Brett Bielema, who is an assistant coach with the New York Giants right now, would listen to an offer, and he probably wouldn't even need to be seen like the inside of the house.
Yeah, he is someone who I was just thinking about like where do they go next? Because Mel Tucker said no, Pat Narduzzi said no, Luke Fickell said no,
Brent Pry, DC at Penn State, said no.
Yeah, like you're kind of going down the list, and it's like, so where are they going to go next? I mean, Houston Nutt is always available. I'm not sure Houston Nutt's a good cultural fit there.
Butch Jones
is a possibility. But yeah, I mean, I could see the Brett Bielema kind of, Wisconsin and Michigan State have always been a little bit linked in my mind, just in terms of style of play and style of program. And, they're kind of the developmental programs that find those kind of 3-star diamond in the rough types and mold them into players that everyone goes, why didn't we recruit that guy 5 years ago? He seems like he could be a fit there. I don't know if it works, but man, it would be fun to see Brett Bielema and Jim Harbaugh going head to head in that state.
It is a dream scenario, and just because I remember when Bielema would take shots at Jim Tressel, and it would like every year at the media day in Chicago, and for whatever reason, because he lost a guy like Kyle Dotson, decommits from Wisconsin and signs with Ohio State or whatever, and he'd have some bad blood. Imagine that Michigan State, Michigan on the recruiting trails there, because he would say, Urban Meyer cheated, Jim Tressel cheated. And so I would love the back and forth between Jim Harbaugh and Brett Bielema, because like Bielema never really cares about what anybody else thinks. Jim Harbaugh doesn't care about what anybody else thinks. And so it's like you got Mentos on one side and you got Coca-Cola on the other, and let's just, put some mics in front of them and see what happens. And, I don't think it'll happen, because I think Michigan State needs to go like in a new direction, but I guess anything without that coaching staff is a new direction.
Yeah.
Like, just get rid of that offensive staff and do something new. But I wrote years ago that Brett Bielema needs to come back to the Big Ten, and that was before Jim Harbaugh was here. Once Jim Harbaugh was here, you're thinking, now he really needs to get back here, because this could be entertaining. And Michigan State, Michigan rivalry renewed. The post-game handshake. Imagine Brett Bielema putting 81 on Michigan like he did Indiana, and just the joy in everybody's hearts.
I mean, just imagine Brett Bielema putting 31 on Michigan, and just Harbaugh being so very angry, because I don't think Brett Bielema does things in the Michigan way, and I'm like putting collar stays in my shirt as I say that, Brett Bielema does not operate in the way that Michigan likes to pretend that it operates, put it that way. And he seems like just the absolute perfect foil for Harbaugh, where, it's almost like a sitcom, and, he's like the Frank Grimes, and Bielema is Homer, and, just it will absolutely drive Harbaugh insane if Bielema ever beats him. So just for that reason alone, I think it would be, I think that is definitely who Michigan State should hire.
I think after every game there would be a meeting at like midfield, like a whole what's your deal?
Yes. Yeah.
Every single game would be what's your deal? What's your deal?
They would rename the Paul Bunyan Trophy the What's Your Deal Trophy, because that would definitely happen.
So we're all hoping that happens, and if it does, we will have an emergency podcast, which is just a bunch of celebrating and party poppers.
Just if you hear something in your feed that is just us laughing hysterically for 45 minutes. Yeah, that is definitely, if you are someone with absolutely no emotional investment in Michigan State football, that is definitely the hire you should be hoping for.
So, what does Luke do now? Like I said, he could stay there forever.
He could. Can I just point out that his old AD just took a new job?
Where's that?
The University of Southern California.
Oh, is that right?
Now, if you're not familiar with the sport of football, USC actually has a football coach right now. However,
is he good? Is he on firm territory?
I wouldn't say his seat is hot as much as literally magma. He is literally sitting on magma right now. Yeah. That seems like a job that could open up. And if Fickell has another 11-win season, maybe. That would be a little bit of a weird fit for him, being an Ohio guy, having coached in Ohio his whole career. But there is a path there. There's a path for him to maybe be the Notre Dame head coach if Brian Kelly goes somewhere. These are jobs that are substantially better than the Michigan State job, and jobs that come with a little less baggage. USC has its own different kind of baggage right now, but
you can still deal with that.
You can still deal with that because you're at USC. And I don't know that he would get those jobs, but if he goes 11-1 again this year and USC opens up, his name is one of the 5 names on that list for the USC job. And that may be worth, another Michigan State will come along next year. There will be, you can get a job, at Illinois or Indiana,
spicy.
or if Tom Allen at Indiana gets
the Michigan State job.
Tom Allen is someone whose name was getting tossed around for some bigger jobs this offseason. Yeah, if he goes and gets a job somewhere, Indiana opens up. Indiana is not a markedly worse job than Michigan State. Michigan State's better, but it's not out of, it's not completely a different level. Indiana, Illinois, Purdue, if Jeff Brom goes somewhere, you could take any of those jobs, and it's you're going to get paid basically what you got paid at Michigan State probably, and your job is in the same basic, galaxy as Michigan State. It may be worth kind of rolling the dice and just see what happens with Mike Bond at USC, and you never know.
Completely. And poor Clay Helton. At 7-5, that's not going to be. That is a fireable offense given how long they keep holding him back. Now, if he wins the bowl game, forget it. You close the season strong, you got to keep a guy. Come on, let's be real. So it'll be interesting. That was my thought as well. USC, even UCLA. Yeah. Something out there. Anything with a U and a C in it.
He's proven.
That allows you to take that job. So that is the Luke Fickell situation, Michigan State situation as it stands. Right now, I'm going to say Mike Tressel. But you know who I might go? Just go get Lance Leipold at Buffalo.
Lance Leipold wouldn't be bad at Buffalo.
All he does is win.
The other guy who'd be interesting would be Chris Creighton at EMU, Eastern Michigan. He's another guy who, I always think about him in terms of jobs like Rutgers, where it's this is just literally a smoking crater right now. Chris Creighton took that EMU job that was just an absolute coach killer for a million years, and they're in bowl games now, and they're putting up winning records now. And he's a little bit like PJ Fleck, where he's kind of got his shtick with the cinder block wall and all that kind of stuff. But he's someone who I would make a call to him, because he's someone who has demonstrated that he can do it. He can do it with some real tough restraints around him, constraints on his program. Basically no resource there whatsoever.
There was a time where it looked like Eastern Michigan was going to go back to FCS.
Yeah, Eastern Michigan was a team that I think went 30 years without a winning record. I remember Ron English, the former Michigan assistant, taking a job there and just immediately going 3-30 and and it was just no one can do this. Obviously no one can win here. And then Chris Creighton has gone and won there, and he hasn't won 30 games in 2 years, but he's won, I think they went 7-5 this year. He would be someone who I would really seriously think about calling if I was Michigan State right now.
And at this point, it's not like, as you get down that list, at some point you realize that you are reaching the point of being a beggar.
Yeah.
And no longer a chooser.
Yeah. And if you get, you have to have a little red line on your list, and anyone above this line we're going to hire, anyone below this line, we're going to have Mike Tressel be the head coach for this year. And, you want to give him a 3-year deal or something, that's fine. But with the understanding that, hey, you might be Luke Fickell at Ohio State here. And we're not calling you an interim coach, but we all know you're an interim coach.
I just think change was necessary. And I think they'll be better for it. It's just, what are they going to deal with the NCAA and all of that stuff. So that's that. Tom, last week we finally got to talk to the new assistant coaches, Kerry Coombs and Corey Dennis. Kerry Coombs spoke with the media. He was on his 9th cup of coffee at about 1 p.m., which I guess would be just your standard day. One of the interesting things when Ryan Day came to Ohio State, and I think I probably said this on one of the shows, he brought this NFL stuff. Jeff Hafley brings all of this NFL stuff. And it's like when Charlie Weiss brought his NFL stuff, and, it was the decided schematic advantage, except it wasn't. Mm-hmm. For Ohio State, it has been. Kerry Coombs talked about how much more defense he learned at Tennessee that he can bring to Ohio State, but being college, you can't implement it all, which was a lesson that Greg Schiano, I think,
should have
accept. Right. And so he's got all of these new things that he can do or can bring, knowing that you have to implement them into what Ryan Day wants in that single high. But there will be some shifting and some new things there. But it was interesting because he had to become like when you go to the pros and you say, we're going to do this, you've got 25, 28, 29, 30-year-old guys going, why? Mm-hmm. Explain this to us. And so now he could no longer you just tell them what to do. He had to explain why it was doing this, why they do it this way, why it was beneficial for the defense. So it made him, a better coach. And it also reminded me of when Jeff Hafley came here and taught the defenders, like, if you are lined up here and you got the sideline there, the receiver only has like 3 options that they can do. So he gave them more insight into the game that they didn't have before, because there's only so many things you can do. So don't even worry about this route because they can't possibly run it here. They wouldn't because it's 3rd and 7. So he was able to simplify their minds. And now Kerry Coombs comes in and has these new things that he can bring in. And, we think of college football as this, where all of these great ideas are, but then the NFL is all they do is come up with stuff. And there's definitely things that you can bring to college, and we're seeing that being successful, and I would expect that to continue under Kerry Coombs.
Yeah, I mean, he used the word voluminous in terms of what he'd learned in coaching in the NFL. He comes with a little bit of a different background than Hafley, just because Hafley had been in the NFL for 7 years in a row or something like that. Coombs has only been going for 2. So he's already a little more plugged into exactly what you can expect a college player to be able to, understand, do, grasp, and execute on the field. So there's a little bit of an advantage there. But you also have, he's coming with all these new ideas, and you also have Greg Madison there, who's there to kind of be almost a constraint there, in the same way he was with Hafley, which no, here's why that won't work. Or while you've been watching NFL and getting all these great ideas the last 2 years, here's the different stuff that people are doing in college now. And here's why that will or won't work. Or, hey, this team tried that and it didn't work for this reason. What's interesting to me, though, is how Coombs shows up at Ohio State this year, stepping down from the NFL, where he's got all these incredible ideas and he's got, more, not as much time to implement them. Compare that to where he came from the last time. Last time he was a high school head coach. So you came to Ohio State, and it was like, wow, these guys can do anything. And, this worked in high school. That's not going to work in college. But just kind of an interesting contrast to how he came to Ohio State the last 2 times and like the position he was coming from.
Yeah, and I did get annoyed by all of the questions from some of the reporters, like, Kerry, all you've ever known is press coverage at Ohio State. I would be like, no.
That's not true.
For 2 years, they did off-man with Everett Withers. It's the whole thing of, like, you've only ever done this, and, like, he's done everything, because now you do a whole bunch of different stuff in the NFL, and they did some one-high stuff. So these are things that he's totally comfortable with, and you still have Matt Barnes there to bridge the gap between Coombs and Hafley. Like, Hafley's ghost is still here with Matt Barnes, and Coombs was asking about Matt Barnes, and he was like, "Oh, I like Matt Barnes." So you've got this marriage of all of these different coaches, no egos, which is what you always need, and which is what they always talk about, and that's how you get the most success. And Ryan Day said that the last voice would be Kerry Coombs or whatever. The decisions are his. And he's the guy saying, well, we're all going to get in a room. Mm-hmm. We're all going to figure it out. Kerry was asking, are you going to be up in the press box? He's like, pretty much like, no, I can't. I can't be up there. I have to be down on the field. So I would expect maybe Greg Madison Barnes will stay up there. Mm-hmm. Maybe Madison and Barnes, I'm not sure. Because Madison doesn't really have, he has the bullet in the Sam. Mm-hmm. Al Washington can handle that.
Yeah.
So I think you got to put one of your defensive coordinators up there.
Yeah.
And so that's where I would expect it.
And that's, I think, what we had landed on the last time we talked about this was, like, if you have an energy guy like Kerry Coombs, sometimes you're going to need that energy guy on the sidelines. Mm-hmm. So you need him on the sidelines. So therefore, he has to be on the sidelines. So that was a short conversation. All right. And that's where he spent his whole career. And I know Madison has been on the sidelines as well for his whole career. So someone's got to move. But, when in doubt, the tiebreaker is the guy who is going to be headbutting headbutting other guys wearing helmets. Like, yeah, that's the guy you want on your sideline.
Mm-hmm, that's the guy. Talked about Shaun Wade, saying, like, Shaun Wade's not going to be a first rounder just because he came back. He still has to continue to get better and needs to show that he can play outside corner, which Combs had no doubt about. It was like Combs loves his players and is effusive in his praise, but like it almost felt overboard with the way he was talking about the entire secondary. But then he's saying, like, we have long corners, we have tall corners who are fast. Well, that's true. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got big, fast safeties. That's true. So the parts are there for them to get what they want out of them. You've just not seen a whole lot of it. But he was also, talked about Seven Banks and Cameron Brown having played hundreds of plays last year, getting hundreds of snaps, many of those meaningful. So when you are bringing in these new starters, these guys do have experience. And he obviously feels there's enough to work with. It's Ohio State, for crying out loud. Mm-hmm. So we'll see how it goes. But in his typical fashion, he feels pretty good about the secondary. Yeah,
and I mean, I think he should feel pretty good about the secondary. You've got a lot of pieces there that you can kind of move around and figure out who fits well where. And these are mostly guys who he has had at least some kind of relationship before. Some of them he's coached, some of them he just was sort of involved in the recruiting process. But he's not coming in cold. He knows 3 years ago, I thought these guys were going to be pretty good college players. And look, here they all are waiting for me to come in and step in. So, and having a Shaun Wade, stipulated Shaun Wade is not an absolute given to be a first-round draft pick next year. But having Shaun Wade there papers over kind of one of the big holes that you were looking at on the defense. So it's like, okay, that's one less thing. He's going to be at least okay. So that's one less thing that's like a major, major open concern going into the spring. So then you've got a couple other guys. So Seven Banks, Cam Brown, Amir Reep, Marcus Williamson, Tyreek Johnson, like all those guys, like you just need to find a couple of them now that can do the stuff that 2 years ago you thought they were going to be able to do.
Yeah, like he said, he's known Seven Banks since when he was an 8th grader. So these are all guys he's familiar with, save for anybody like he's known Legend Cavazos forever too. Mm-hmm. So maybe the kid from Texas, the what's his name, Tom? The corner they signed this year, Tom. What's his name?
Ryan Watts.
That's the one. Maybe he doesn't know him so well.
Mm-hmm. Maybe you don't know him so well.
I even talked to him, and I'm working on a story, but there's a lot of names to go. So anything else from Coombs before we dive into Corey Dennis here?
I think that's the big stuff. Other than just, it's so fun to have Kerry Coombs back. It's just, there are always coaches, assistants who we are like especially excited to talk to when we get to talk to them. Last year, Jeff Hafley was on that list. It was a real bummer when Jeff Hafley left. It was like, all right, this is an acceptable replacement for Jeff Hafley from the media perspective.
I appreciate that Ryan Day considered that. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that was at the top of his, list of considerations. Like, well, if I'm going to replace a media favorite like Jeff Hafley, I better not anger the media by bringing somebody who is, doesn't talk much or whatever. I better give them something commensurate to Jeff Hafley or beyond. And he did. We appreciate that. Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, and we'll see how he does with the defensive coordinating portion of his job, but that's sort of secondary to the
that's
primary
beside
concerns.
the point. Yeah. Because shoot, heck, if things are going bad, we'll get good answers there too.
Yeah, it's true.
That's great. I can't wait. So this was Corey Dennis's introduction to the Ohio State media as well, and he was a little nervous.
Yeah,
which you would expect. He's 27 years old and talking to a room full of 50 different people that he only knows a few of. And then so, he talked for like 10 minutes and then we went and talked to him on the indoor field and he was like, sorry about that. I'll get better at it basically. And, obviously he will, but this is a guy who has Justin Fields, 2 freshmen, a veteran in Gunnar Hoke. He is in a better situation right now than Mike Yurcich was last year. Mm-hmm. And he saw the way things were last year and how combustible the situation was. Now he's got more players to work with. You've got a guy like Justin Fields. That's about as good as you can hope for your first year. A guy who understands the offense. And now you can start working on the little things. Although when everybody is asking, well, what do you work on now with Justin Fields? It's like, oh, just stuff. We're going to just, his entire game, just things and stuff. And, it'll turn out just fine, Tom.
Yeah. I mean, you're starting from a pretty good high level there. So, you don't need to, compared to last year. I mean, this time last year, Justin Fields didn't know where he was going in the building yet. I mean, this is basically his offense. So there are always things you work on. I mean, NFL quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers still has a quarterback coach who he's working on quarterback stuff with. Like, there's always stuff to improve. There's always, new film to watch and all that kind of good stuff.
Maybe like stop holding the ball so long.
Maybe. Don't throw it to the guys wearing Clemson helmets.
Oh, Tom.
That was a lesson that was learned late in the year. But
should have played Clemson sooner.
That's true.
Like September.
Yeah, that maybe even in August when it didn't count. Yeah, I mean, you look at Fields' freshman year, and it was like you really couldn't do a whole lot better than that. As it was his freshman year at Ohio State, his sophomore year. You know what I mean? I was going to
let you go.
His first year. You know what I mean? Yeah. It really could not have gone much better than that. I mean, it was 40 touchdowns and 1 interception at one point. I mean, at the end of the regular season. That is, and it wasn't like, well, he's a system quarterback. Like, no, also, not only was he statistically one of the best quarterbacks in Big Ten history, also he's one of the most physically talented quarterbacks in Big Ten history.
Do you remember, it would be like, before the Cincinnati game, like he played really well the first game, then before the Cincinnati game, we're like, doing a pregame, like, now just be aware, this might be one of those games where he's like 11 for 25. So, it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. I think we did the same thing maybe for the Indiana game and then also for Michigan State. Like, he's not always going to be perfect, guys. Eventually, there's going to be some bad games, and they're really...
Yeah, I mean, there was the 1 interception, and then also...
2 fumbles.
Yeah. He is so far out of the norm for, like, what you expect for, first of all, a second-year college quarterback, a first-year college quarterback in a system, a first-year starter in a system. Like, there was no reasonable way to expect anything close to what they got out of him next year. So now you have pretty much the same coaching staff. Yurcich is swapped out for Dennis, but you've got all the other guys are internal people. Like, you're not bringing someone else from outside to replace Yurcich. Corey Dennis was sitting in a lot of those same meetings that Mike Yurcich was last year. So you've got everything is set up for Justin Fields to have a big year. And, it's, I think goes back to something that Ryan Day talked about last fall. After the games, you're playing these games and you're playing teams that you're killing by 50 points. And it's like, well, we still have stuff we can get cleaned up. You beat Northwestern 52-3. Well, there's still stuff on film that we can go, hey, don't do this again. Do this differently. Hey, here's this one guy got by you, and it didn't matter because Northwestern is terrible, and so it didn't really bite us. But hey, the next time you do it this way. Reading defenses, that can be offensive lineman blocking, whatever. That's not a quarterback specific thing. But just all the little stuff, like nobody's perfect. He didn't complete 100% of his passes last year. And he didn't hit the right read on 100% of his passes. So you can always get better. But if you're starting from the level that Justin Fields was at last year, any sort of improvement gets you into like holy crap territory.
You remember how, and I've mentioned this, I think, here before, you remember how Trevor Lawrence opened this past season by throwing a bunch of interceptions? Mm-hmm. I assume it was because he was given more freedom to do what he wanted. I wonder if we might see something similar from Justin Fields this season. And if it happens, are people going to start blaming Corey Dennis for that?
Oh, are you new to the world, to the internet.com?
So there is, as guys get better and more comfortable, you give them more things that they can do. And sometimes they see what they're capable of. And it's a learning process. And against lesser teams, go ahead and learn. Mm-hmm. And just make sure, as you saw, Trevor Lawrence was pretty good by the end of the season. I wonder if there's some freedom there that then gets pointed back at Corey Dennis. But Corey Dennis also has Kevin Wilson to rely upon. And you've got Ryan Day and Kevin Wilson. Mm-hmm. And then you have a quarterback like Justin Fields. It's hard to find a better dream job for a quarterback's coach, maybe at Clemson, with the quarterbacks they're lining up. I asked him regarding freshmen C.J. Stroud and Jack Miller, if he's seen them competing already. He's like, it's kind of too early. They're just competing with themselves, basically, competing as trying to stay above the water, staying afloat because of the mat drills and the workouts and the weight room, all that stuff where, Jack Miller told me that from the day he got here, he's been competing with C.J. Stroud, but there's only so much competing you can do against another person when you are just trying to maintain forward motion yourself. Yeah. You can't be worried about the guy next to you.
Right. Yeah. Keeping your head above water is a very good analogy here because we always hear, they're drinking through a fire hose. Like you are perpetually in danger of getting just swamped with information. It seems kind of cruel
for a guy already in the water to then have the fire hose fastened at his face.
Yeah. That's asking a lot of someone who is also, this isn't just, we're adjusting to a new thing in football. No, also you're living in a new place away from your parents for the first time. You're going to classes that you've never gone to before. You're living in a place you've never lived before. And, you've been to Columbus a few times. You've been to Ohio State. Even if you've been to Ohio State a few weekends a year, it's like if you always went to the same place for summer vacation and you were there for a week, a few years in a row, and then you move there. That's actually kind of that's an entirely different thing. And you feel like, I know this, I know my way around this place. It's like, do you? Because, you can't expect much of anything out of those guys right now. That's spring practice. I'm sure during the spring game, one of them is going to go, 5 for 12 or 5 for 16. And there's going to be this rush to say that, this guy's a bust and he's terrible. He'll never play here. It's like, that you're getting thrown into something where we hear from quarterback after quarterback, the first year you don't really know what you're doing. And it takes a while before the light really, the things really click. Even if you come in the spring, being ready in the fall is not easy. That's not an easy thing to do, especially for quarterback. So you have to kind of be patient and not expect a lot. And, our inclination is always to ask how are they looking so far? Because we want to know. Yeah. This is what we want to know. This is what you probably want to know. And the answer is always like, all the questions that we really want answers to, there's never really an answer this early because the answer is it's too early.
Yep. Yeah. With all those freshmen, and then you've got, of course, Gunnar Hoke, and so he's got his hands full. But you've got enough players there to learn on the job and also produce. Mm-hmm. So that's what'll happen there. Anything else from Corey Dennis that you wanted to bring up?
I did like the fact that he was asked what he called Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer is his father-in-law, and he calls him Coach.
Yes, always Coach.
Yeah, Coach. So there you go. I mean, that's one way to keep it from getting too awkward. It's maintain that work relationship.
Yeah, and he kept getting asked about, how much did your dad have to do, or your father-in-law have to do with you getting a job? And it's like, well, that's the coaching business.
Right.
It's always about connections and who you know for that first job, that first big job. It's the rare coach who hasn't been helped along the way by another coach. Mm-hmm. And so this being his father-in-law, all he did was, come be a GA. And then it's up to you. And,
right.
As we've talked about, Ryan Day's not going to hire the guy for the most important position if he didn't feel confident in him and if he hadn't seen enough from him in the 5 years that he's been at Ohio State. Although Ryan Day, of course, only having been here for 3 years, mm-hmm. but in that time, clearly saw plenty and has no qualms. And if things don't go well, he'll just fire him.
Yeah, I mean, you can have, of all the positions on the coaching staff, this is probably the one where you'd be most likely to take a little bit of a chance. And I don't really think it's taken that much of a chance because they've seen him for 3 mm-hmm. years. He's worked with all the guys in that room for years. But you're bringing in a quarterback coach on a staff where the head coach is a quarterback. The offensive coordinator is, well-versed in the passing game. I mean, it's not like they're just like throwing him out on an island and go, all right, good luck with all that. We'll see you in September. Hope everything's going well. He has plenty of other people who are, directly involved in the process. So, he should be pretty well versed in how things work and what they want and what they're looking for in terms of, style of play and hey, technique, hey, do it this way, not that way. So he's pretty plugged in with all that stuff. But, if he has a question, there's other people here who, some people might call them experts who are also on the staff in your particular field of expertise. So it should be fine.
And he can recruit from everything we've been told, being young, he's able to relate to the players mm-hmm. better than some somebody in their 30s, mm-hmm. some old person in their 30s. Mm-hmm. So there's that. Although right now he's looking at kids in the 2022 class, keeping in touch with the 2021 commit Kyle McCord. Really, there's how far out can you go though? And that's you can only go so far out, but you start early and you get to know those players. You build a rapport with these recruits. And then when some of them blow up, then you're like, hey.
Remember me? I was here way back when. Yeah, I mean, recruiting is so much about relationships. So it's just that kind of constant just ping, texting, calling, whatever, FaceTime, whatever it is. Like whatever. Yeah, no, it's a different kind of recruiting. You have just a constant just building of that relationship, and you don't want to get in with people too far down the road with people too early, because Ohio State mm-hmm. has done that in the past, and taking a commitment from a freshman year high school player, and it's like, well, if he doesn't develop, then you have a real awkward conversation coming a couple of years.
You see where he ended up?
I did. Yeah, I'm talking about Danny Clark, who was a 2017 recruit. They got a verbal from him in 2013, when the year 2017 sounded like flying cars in the distant future. And he has kind of bounced around a lot. He went to Kentucky, then he went to a community college in Mississippi, I think, and then he's back at Vanderbilt now. So he's going to be playing with Alex Williams at Vanderbilt.
How do you think Vandy feels about signing a JUCO kid?
I think Derek Mason is probably concerned enough about whether he gets to keep a job a year from now that he's probably just fine with it.
Is that like one of the world's greatest junior colleges that the guy can then go to Vanderbilt? It's like the Harvard of junior colleges.
I mean, it's from Mississippi, so I think it goes without saying.
True point. So then also the early enrollees were at Ohio State, and this is our first chance to talk to them and see what they're like. One of the best things of the day was Jack Miller talking about him and CJ Stroud. They get along, they're friends, and he said, I think, what did he say? We're not douches to each other.
The exact quote was, "We're not douches to each other." I know, because I was reading through the transcript. I sent that to you and went, whoo!
So then that, of course, makes me miss Tate Martell.
Yeah.
Because imagine he was already like tweeting out when Justin Fields was even looking like, he's like, don't swing and miss or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if Tate Martell was like Jack Miller, and then another quarterback comes along in that class and says, yeah, I'm going to be a Buckeye as well. And I don't think they would have gotten along so well, Tate Martell and whomever else in that freshman class.
I mean, we basically had a pretty similar situation, and he was going to 100% be the starter, and then 100% transferred to Miami like 2 weeks later. So,
and next week we'll see him in the XFL.
That would be interesting. That'd be exciting. I'd be all for Tate. I would still like to see what a full year of Tate Martell as a quarterback would look like for anyone.
But first, you have to go to a football team. It can't be Miami,
right? And that's the thing. Like, I refuse to hold any sort of poor performance at Miami against anyone, because that place is just everyone looks the same and plays the same at Miami, and that's not a good thing.
No, it's not. So, like Corey Dennis and Ryan Day both said, like, you don't have to be enemies when you're competing against each other, and they've been citing Cardale and JT forever as an example of that. And so, yeah, I think Jack or CJ said they watched the Super Bowl together. They get along. They're friendly. And I think that's what Buckeye fans want to have happen, because when you get adversarial, then you also get splits, and you want to stay as far away from that as you can. And I think also that's where the Ohio State culture comes in, and is like, that just squashes it before it could even start.
Yeah, you haven't had the Stanley Jackson, Joe Germain kind of dynamic at Ohio State
I was thinking Mark Garcia, Joe Germain.
Yeah.
Two junior college guys.
Yeah. But I mean, just in terms of like the real sharp division in the quarterback room, you haven't had that for a while. And guys who can get along and be personally friends and respect each other, like that goes a long way towards keeping, a healthy, happy culture in that locker room and on that team. And, if they're not going to be, kind of sniping and griping and complaining, then it's much harder for other people to, even if they're kind of lean that way personally, it's harder for them to really do it. If they're not complaining, why would you complain?
And we've also talked about this will be where they start to show their leadership abilities. And I think if they're both like cool with the situation, that exhibits some of that. Because if one guy goes off and is like, kind of a grump about it, it's not really leading anything.
Right.
And so you got both of these guys watching Justin Fields, watching Gunnar Hoke shoot somebody. Even I think CJ talked about Jagger LaRoe and learning from all of these guys. And I think there's just some survival aspect to it as well. Because like G. Scott said, you get thrown in the water and it's sink or swim. And so you can't really, worry too much about your mortal enemy at that point. And as we mentioned a few minutes ago, but yeah, so that's where they are. They get along for now. Hopefully when spring starts, they start to hate each other and they start to, get out there and fight for blood.
Real passive aggressive tweets. That's what we're looking for.
That's all I want.
Looking for. And, one of the things that will probably help keep the peace for now is, that they're not in line for the starting job right now. Like, I don't want to. I don't know. I'm assuming Ryan Day is not actually going to come out and say, "Oh, it's an open quarterback competition." No, it's Justin Fields. Justin Fields is going to be the starting quarterback this fall, unless he's hurt. Justin Fields is going to be the starting quarterback this fall. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, the backup. We'll do a whole bunch of shows on the quarterbacks and the offense and all of that as we head into spring. But while you are entering the spring as the number 3 and 3A quarterbacks, there's a lot less pressure and stakes there as to who's number 3 and who's number 4, or who's number 2 and who's number 3 than there will be a year from now when Justin Fields is probably in the NFL and those guys and Kyle McCord are fighting it out for the starting job.
You know how players will tweet out practice clips or something of something they've done well?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what if these two would like just tweet out like the other guy throwing interceptions? Just like all of the bad stuff. That would be, again, if we can get Brett Bielema to be the Michigan State coach and we can get some passive-aggressive quarterbacks as freshmen, I don't think that's a lot to ask. I think, I don't think it's wrong to ask for that to happen.
Might be wrong to ask.
Well, possibly. You know, who's to say?
I'm going to guess. I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that we probably will not have passive aggressive clip tweetage this year from the quarterbacks. I think they both seem like they're pretty bought into the culture for now. And
what if they both team up on Gunnar Hoke?
Oh man.
So I don't think that would be good either.
That would be.
Now you got 2 bad apples.
There you go. Yeah. No, I mean, I'm excited to see how this plays out with those guys, and you know, do they make a run at the number 2 job this summer? And
the spring game, and we'll have plenty of time to talk about the spring game.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point, they need to be matched up against each other. You know, be it for the second half or the fourth quarter. Just, you know, give the fans something to watch. The 3,000 that remain for the fourth quarter, give them a reward.
Yeah, that'll be.
Let them throw to the walk-ons.
Yeah.
And get pass protected by the walk-ons, and you'll get a really good, perfect idea of what these guys can do.
Oh, for sure.
Tom, one of us should probably pre-write spring game quarterback performances through the years.
Mm-hmm.
That way we'll know how much to judge, as you said, like a 5 for 12 performance.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what Justin Fields' line was this time last spring.
It's like 3 for 13.
It was not good. It was not something that suggested anything that we saw last fall. It was like 5 for 12, and he had the 99-yard touchdown to Ben Victor.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like, well, if you take that out, he was like 4 for 11 for 30 yards. Oh boy, this is going to go great.
And it did. G. Scott, one of the 4 wide receivers, he was interesting to talk to. You know, I asked him why Ohio State, and he said, you know, first time he visited, 50% of it was, you know, I just had to be here. This is where I want to be, and he couldn't explain it. The other 50% was Brian Hartline, Mickey Marotti, and it's interesting how much Mickey Marotti comes up with a lot of these guys because he's as much part of the development into NFL players as the coaching, as the assistant coaches, or just everything that happens at Ohio State, the offense, Ryan Day. And so he cited those guys as, you know, the other half of the reason. And then you put that all together and that leads to an NFL career. And I think all of the receivers see it that same way where, yes, Brian Hartline, yes, Mickey Marotti. The offense, it was interesting. Like, you're only going to get 4 or 5 targets a game. You're going to split time, and they don't care. And it's the culture is being instituted before they even get here with these guys. You've got wide receivers who 2,000 yards receiving for Jackson Smith and Jigba. Everybody else 1,000 yards. They're getting the ball, and yet they know there's going to be a lot of blocking. I might get. Can you hope for 60 receptions at some point in your career? Like a season?
Yeah, if you're KJ Hill, maybe. Yeah.
That's the tops.
Yeah.
And yet, here they are. And you look at Terry McLaurin, you look at Michael Thomas, and that's as much as a reason as well.
Yeah,
the proof is there without necessarily the stats.
Right. I mean, if your ultimate goal is to be an NFL player, then you have seen from Terry McLaurin, you don't need to have 60 catches in a year to play in the NFL. Michael Thomas did not have, put up 1,800 yards receiving in a season at Ohio State. He's doing just fine in the pros, from what I am led to believe. But the culture is, I mean, it flows just from class to class to class, where Garrett Wilson, apparently Jackson Smith-Njigba said he talked to Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson said, yeah, you just got to make the most of your opportunities. You're going to get four to 5 targets a game. Like, you got to make the most of those.
And he did.
And Garrett Wilson did. And, a year ago, that was probably Chris Olave having that conversation with Garrett Wilson. And a year before that, that was probably, Johnny Dixon or Paris Campbell or Terry McLaurin having that conversation with Chris Olave.
Yeah, it was Paris Campbell saying, don't worry, you'll get 92 catches like I did.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll be fine, kid.
Yeah. And those guys, they were behind like Evan Spencer. I mean, it has just gone from just through the years. It just gets passed down as the, that's a tight knit room. That is always been a room that has been pretty tight knit. Like when it was Paris and Johnny and Terry, they would come out and do interviews together. Like they would just sit together and do interviews together as a group. And it kind of drove us insane, but it was like, that's just what they did. Yes. And they hung out together. They were friends. And, you would see these plays where, Terry McLaurin would have a block. He'd block 2 guys on a play or 3 guys on a play. And he's like, I like that more that's a bigger highlight for me than scoring a touchdown. Last year, like there were a bunch of pictures where you'd see Jameson Williams in the background, like as Garrett Wilson scoring a touchdown, Jameson Williams is in the background, like screaming and smiling and so happy and excited for his friend. And like, that's the culture in that room. And that's not something you can fake. That's not something that was like, oh, well, this is a good group of kids. That's just, this is how we do it. And it has worked out pretty well. So you should keep doing it like this because see all those guys who did it this way? Look where they are now. That's where you want to be. Keep doing it this way. Yeah.
It is interesting just the way that is started, like Evan Spencer, what did he have in 2014? Like 9 or 13 catches, something really minuscule, but he was
1 for 1 for 21 yards and a touchdown through the air. So
there you go. And I was looking the other day, Terry McLaurin in his 4 years on the field finished with 1 more catch than Jalen Marshall in his 2 years on the field.
Wow.
And look at where things are now. So that's as much evidence that's testimony, as Urban Meyer would say. Paris Johnson, the 5-star offensive tackle, was talking about watching clips of Orlando Pace throwing around guys in college and how it was similar. Like he was do similar things in high school, but now he wants to do that sort of thing in college like Orlando Pace, and he kept mentioning Orlando Pace. And this is like, you better be careful taking Orlando Pace's name and just putting it out there like that, because if you're going to bring that on yourself, granted it was already out there because you're a 5-star offensive tackle, best player since obvious maybe Orlando Pace, so there are already comparisons, and we've got pictures. You took a picture of them together. That's fine, but then when you start saying it like, I want to be Orlando Pace, okay, son, let's see where this goes, because now you're on the clock.
Yeah, well, I remember taking that picture of Paris Johnson and Orlando Pace. They were just like walking down the tunnel before a game last year. And I remember taking it and then going upstairs and saying to you, like, I don't know if I want to use this, because this is going to invite some really irresponsible comps. And you don't want to put that on a kid.
You're trying to protect the kid.
Right, yeah, you don't want to put that on a kid who's 18 years old, because Orlando Pace is not a reasonable expectation. No. Orlando Pace, I mean, you could take the high school Orlando Pace and have him come to Ohio State, and half the time that Orlando Pace doesn't turn into the Orlando Pace that, we're still talking about Orlando Pace 23 years after he last played at Ohio State, because Orlando Pace is literally the best player I have ever seen on a college football field. And, you should have won the Heisman, number 1 overall draft pick, NFL Hall of Famer. Like, I mean, if you want to put those kind of expectations on yourself, okay, that is asking a lot. And I think just you, dear listener, would do well to just keep in mind, like, hey, he's probably not going to be Orlando Pace, at least not right now.
Right.
Like, he may get there at some point, and he certainly has the physical tools, the size, the strength. Coach Mick Marotti talked about him as like the guy who stood out as the guy who was physically ready to play college football already, because he's been working at this since 8th grade. He's got all the pieces there. There's still a whole lot of stuff that has to happen between now and the NFL Hall of Fame introductions. Like there's a lot of stuff that has to happen. So he is probably not going to look like Orlando Pace this fall. That's okay. That does not mean that he's a bust. That does not mean that he will never be an All-American. Just let's be patient and not get too far out over our skis.
So you're saying we should be more patient than he is.
I'm saying that
he's the one that's saying we can compare him. We can do this.
Yeah,
we can put that pressure on him. Yeah. We can ask him after game one, like, "Oh, why aren't you in the starting lineup? What's wrong? Are you homesick? Is something not right? What's going on?"
Yeah, considering that he's 18 years old, I don't think he really remembers Orlando Pace at Ohio State. So, like watching watching film clips is great. That's good. Let's just pump the brakes a little there, and that's great though, because I mean that's they have talked about receivers who just always wanted to be Michael Thomas, like guys who came to Ohio State and they wanted to be Michael Thomas. Now I'm forgetting who it was. They just talked about him like last year, 2 years ago. There was a guy who, what did Michael Thomas do? That's what I want to do. I think it was Austin Mack.
Yeah.
Like, what did Michael Thomas do? That's what I want to do. If Michael Thomas ate burritos every Tuesday, I'm going to eat burritos every Tuesday. You tell me what Michael Thomas did, I'm going to do it. And Austin Mack turned into a very good receiver. Austin Mack is not Michael Thomas yet, but you follow that path, you do what that great person did. That's a pretty good way to end up in a pretty good spot.
Mm-hmm. And he will, like, I assume the plan, this is how I would see it happening. He will be a backup this year, and then he's starting at left tackle next year, ideally.
That seems logical, yeah.
And so that's, and starting as a true sophomore, that's fine. It's very rare.
Mm-hmm.
Orlando Pace was a true freshman when he started.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, and then was an All-American and one of the award winners as a sophomore. If Paris Johnson falls short of that, will I write about it and how, first-year starter fails to win awards? Yes, of course. But I'm not putting that pressure on him. He started it.
He did start it. That's true.
So there you go. Cameron Martinez was the lone signing day signee, which was not a surprise. And what was interesting, though, is Ryan Day said, yeah, we'll start him out on offense and defense and see how things go. We'll let him catch some passes, run the ball, let him play some corner, let him return some kicks and punts, and who knows what'll happen. And it's a lot to ask of a freshman who is going to show up in the summer completely, I don't want to say unprepared, but that's a tall task to be given all these different things. I think he said he wants to play defense. And by the time this rolls around, they may not really even need him as a look on offense anymore. But it says a lot about him that he's one of those rare guys who are like, we'll just see. We'll throw him out there on both sides of the ball, let him return some kicks, and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a pretty unique level of athletic ability, which, that's the kind of guy that you will see coaches fighting over. And ultimately, I think if you just look through the scholarship chart right now, there's more of a need at corner than there is at wide receiver, especially in the freshman class. So I would have a feeling he probably ends up on defense. Not that he couldn't be a very good offensive player, but if all else is equal, Ohio State probably needs him more on defense. So that's probably where he ends up. But if you could be a game-breaking punt returner, or sure, absolutely, give him a chance to do something with the ball in his hands, because if you have watched his highlights, he knows what to do with the ball in his hands. We have told this story several times on this podcast because it is just so remarkable. He has a 9-minute highlight reel from his senior season, touchdowns only. No plays in there in which he fails to score a touchdown, and it is 9 minutes long. And I don't remember seeing any shots looped or repeated. So that's pretty good.
It's not bad. I think he finished with like 6,500 yards rushing. Day was asked, could this possibly be your second running back in the class? They tried to get 2 running backs with Bijan Robinson and Jalen Knight, and they was like, we'll see. He can do some of that. What I thought was interesting is they are trying to get the H's back to carrying the ball, and that's not KJ Hill's game. Mm-hmm. And as they said, quite frankly, there's no other H that stepped up. So that was another reason why they played so many 2 tight ends. Mm-hmm. For one, they liked their tight ends, and they knew they were going to play more too. But there are no other H's to play, And, this year, with another year of Jalen Gill getting stronger, getting better, you got Mookie Cooper, who is already he's like 5'10" and 195. So he's rocked up and he can do the jet sweeps and stuff. Jackson Smith and Jigba, a guy who's also going to start inside, but I think is more of the cage at Hill. I don't know how much he's going to carry the ball in jet sweeps. He's probably fast enough to do that. And then you talk about Cameron Martinez, who definitely could if need be. But yeah, I agree with you. If the spring goes well for those inside guys, Cameron Martinez can start outside or start on defense, where he will start out at corner, according to Kerry Coombs. They start everybody there except for, I'm assuming, like Lathan Ransom, who's a true safety. They'll start Cameron Martinez out at outside corner, and then you move him inside as he shows that maybe this isn't my best position, and they'll go from there. So that's Cameron Martinez. Any of the other freshmen catch your eye?
I don't think there was anything else that was like super remarkable, just scanning through in my head. But yeah, I think that was kind of the big storylines from last week.
Tom, before we go, thoughts on the XFL? Did you watch any of it this weekend?
I watched some of it. I did not sit down and watch an entire game, but I watched bits and pieces. You have a note here about the kickoff rule. The kickoff rule is certainly intriguing. A good way to cut back on the injuries and the guys running 25 miles an hour and colliding head on.
I think it's awesome. I think the returner is around 5 or 10 or whatever, and then the blockers and the tacklers are separated by 5 or 10 yards, and they're at maybe the 20 or the
20,
30
25,
of where the ball is being kicked to. So they're not running down the field; they're already down there. And once the guy gets it, then the defense can finally go after him, and it encourages kickoff returns, which have been removed from the game. I think it's great. And I didn't see any of them busted, but it seems like there is very real opportunity to bust these because there's just one line of defense.
Right.
And if you get through there, you're gone. Assuming you don't get trapped by the kicker, who will have about 40 yards head on of trying to track you down, which could be entertaining in itself.
He's playing that Jabril Peppers extremely deep safety from the Cleveland Browns a few years ago.
I would implement that tomorrow for college football.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the plays that they have to figure something out because everything they keep doing right now is just now there's no action. There's nothing at all. It's just DeMario McCall standing on the goal line and watching the football sail over his head all season. What they've got isn't really working, but they have to do something because it can't stay the way it was because you have so many injuries and, with all the concerns about CTE and all that, you cannot stay with the status quo. So yeah, I like that as a possibility. The other solution is the 4th and 15 kind of thing, and the team that's kicking it off has to basically do a 4th and 15, and if they get it, then it's like recovering an onside kick. But I think that something has to happen, and that is as creative a solution to that issue as I've seen.
Did you see what happens if you kick the ball out of bounds?
No.
The other team gets it 15 yards from where the ball was kicked. So you get the opposing 45.
Oh, wow.
So you really get penalized. I'm not sure if Ohio State fans are so keen on this idea right now.
Keep it in bounds.
Now, also in the XFL, coaches after the touchdown can go for 1 point from the 2, 2 points from the 5, or 3 points from the 10. And of course, Tom, all of these coaches are still just going for 1 point.
Because football coaching is the single most risk-averse. I can't imagine that there's any kind of meaningful studies that have been done on the expected point value from these places yet. Because I'm sure that when they do that, 2 or 3 is going to be the right move statistically. You're not, are you twice as likely to score from the 5 as you are from the 2? I mean,
no, I think I saw some success rates of 36% from 1 and 38% from 2. And I don't know how many 3-point attempts there were, but it was interesting. I saw the XFL tweet, there's currently a 17-point game going on and they're like, this is a 2-score game. And you're like, Holy crap.
Yeah, that's which is crazy.
Yeah. Because you conditioned all your life 17 points, that's 3 scores, but not in the XFL. And I don't think college football should necessarily worry about the rock and jock 2-point conversions or whatever. There are always some interesting stuff, interesting new things. The communication with the replay officials, if you saw some of that.
Yep.
The open lines of communications, I don't think will ever happen in college football or the NFL, but it was interesting to see. But I think the kickoff rule would be great, and I do that tomorrow.
The sideline interviews, like right after you miss a kick, like, well, what happened there?
Yeah.
Kind of hashtag college kicker to that. Am I right?
Yeah, that would be. Can you imagine like talking to Urban Meyer after something like that, like after Michigan State makes that kick in 2015. So Urban, what do you think? And just this dead look, in his face. So yeah, that will never happen. And because like the XFL needs the exposure and nobody else needs it that bad. So anything else, Tom, before we close it down here?
No, I think we're good for this week. And I have a good feeling. I think we're going to do another podcast next week.
Well, yeah, let's not count our chickens before they get the flu. And then we should probably also do a bonus show at that point as well. So we'll get that done as well. We'll probably seek out some ideas for that or suggestions or some listener questions. So I want to thank you all for listening. Make sure to check out the rest of the shows on the Ozone Radio Network with the Buckeye Sloopcast on Mondays and Fridays, Silver Bullets on Tuesdays, us usually on Wednesday, but what is today, Monday?
I don't know.
Tuesday?
I think it's Monday. It's Monday.
There you go. And I'll get this out as quickly as possible. Check out theozone.net. There's all kinds of stuff coming, and we'll have plenty of football stuff all the way through spring ball. Spring ball not far away. Our spring previews will, I think, start next week.
Yeah, because spring ball starts, the spring game is 2 months away basically from right now.
And spring ball starts first week of March. So after this, I think we've got 2 shows. So we'll do like an offensive preview and a defensive preview. And shoot, that's easy. We can do that. We can handle that. So thank you all for listening. We will talk to you all later.
We could steal a car and leave tonight. that Des Moines' all